So let's get started with our first presenter, Alicia Milne of Q2 Metals. Q2 Metals, TSX venture listed QTWO, is a Canadian mineral exploration company focused on the Cisco Lithium Project. This has been one heck of a story to follow since their discovery, especially considering the headwinds in the lithium market that Alicia has had to face. So with that being said, I'll let you take it away, Alicia.
Okay, so I am Alicia Milne, and I'm the president and CEO of Q2 Metals Corp. We have the Cisco Lithium Project, which is in the Eeyou Istchee, James Bay region of Quebec, Canada. And this is a good first page of our slide. I always like to point this out. That's Neil McCallum, who's our vice president of exploration, and he's standing on what we refer to as the CO1 outcrop. So for the most part, this is going to be the biggest rock that you'll see on the project, and I'll highlight it in some of the coming slides. Again, as Arlen mentioned, I'll be speaking to some forward-looking statements, so I invite you to go to our presentation and have a read through all of the text of this. Neil McCallum, VPX, and our QP has also signed off on this presentation. Q2 Metals, we are rapidly advancing the Cisco Lithium Project, which is in the Nemaska traditional territory of the Eeyou Istchee, James Bay region of Quebec, Canada. And as I mentioned before, that CO1 outcrop that you saw on the first page of this presentation, that's down at the bottom of your screen there. So for the most part, again, it's the biggest rock you'll see. And the rest of the area that you see here on this picture is forestry. So we're in a predominantly forestry area where, companies come in and they harvest the trees, they replant them. So to the left of that CO1 outcrop, that is what we refer to as the mineralized zone. Our team, so I'm the president CEO. I have a legal background. I've been in mining for 20 plus years, formerly the corporate secretary at Pretium Resources, which had the high-grade Brucejack gold mine in northern British Columbia. Neil McCallum, he's a geologist. He's got 20 plus years of experience. The last 10, I would say, would be in the James Bay region of Quebec, looking at lithium projects. He was involved with the Patriot Battery Metals or PMET Resources initial staking of the Corvette project, which is now your Shakachuanan project. Jody Bellefleur, she's our CFO. She's been around for 20 plus years as well. Notably, we added Keith Phillips to our board. So Keith is the former CEO of Piedmont Lithium and has 30 plus years of experience on Wall Street. So he's been a great addition to the team. Also, we have Simone Gavin, who is our VP ESG. He's actually based in the Rouyn-Noranda area. He was born in the town of Matagami, so he's very close to the project. He knows a lot of people in the area, and he's been great having on board. A quick look at our share structure. So this was as at Monday, so March 23rd. Current cash on hand, we have about $50 million. We did do a financing back in August of 2025. We raised $26 million on a flow-through basis. So that really allowed us to accelerate the work that we were doing. Of that cash on hand currently, there's about 14 million, maybe just shy of that is still flow through that Neil needs to spend this year. And we also have warrants that are outstanding. So when we first acquired Cisco back in 2024, we did do a financing in July and August. We have warrants that have pretty much been in the money since we issued them. Right now, there's about 7.5 million warrants outstanding. So that would potentially bring in about $3.5 million. And those are expiring July 31st, 2026. We do have analyst coverage from Canaccord, ATB Cormark, and Argonaut, and their email addresses are there if you want to reach out to get that coverage. And moving on to Cisco. So this is the Cisco project. This is another good picture that I like to refer to. This is actually just outside the town of Matagami, which you'll see in the next slide on the map of things. But this, to note, is the Billy Diamond Highway. So this is the highway that runs all the way from the south up to the north to the town of Radisson, which is where the Quebec hydro dams are. And again, it's a forestry area, so lots of activity in the area. It's a well-paved highway. I was just up there last week, and it's kept very clear in the wintertime, and it's a major highway, so it cuts through portions of our project as well. And here's where we are, the map of James Bay. So you can see that town of Matagami, which I just referred to. We're the closest ones to infrastructure, so we're the closest ones to that town. There's other projects in the region, such as Rio Tinto's Galaxy and Wabuchi projects, critical elements with Rose. And up there to the north, you have PMET's Shakachuanan project and Winsome's Adena project. But again, we're just 150 kilometers north of the town of Matagami, which is actually the rail line. So that's where your Canadian National Railway ends. And essentially anything coming out of the James Bay region gets brought down to Matagami, loaded onto the trains, and then sent either down south to the town of Bécancour, which is being developed by the Quebec government as a battery hub. There's some processing facilities down there, or you could take it to the ports in Saguenay or Quebec City and send it onwards for additional processing. We acquired the project in 2024, so just 2 years ago. The group that we bought the project off of had originally staked it in about 2022. They did some work on it in 2023, and the work that they did was what attracted us to the project. So they actually drilled 6 holes. And in one of those holes, they hit a 48-meter intercept of continuous spodumene pegmatite that ended up assaying at 1.36% lithium oxide. And that is a really good hit in that region. So that's what attracted us to it. And we acquired it in February 2024. We got out there that summer. We drilled 17 holes for about 36 or 6,300 meters. Got back out there last winter, did some pretty aggressive step outs just to continue testing the rest of the area. And then during the summer and this past fall, we started tightening up the drill spacing. We did put out an exploration target, which I'll get into, and that was based off the first 40 holes. And since then, we've been continuing to infill drill. We do have an inferred mineral resource estimate pending. It was technically due out by the end of this month, but we had a slight delay to it just based on some information that was coming in. So we've delayed that by a few weeks. But you can see here at the top of this map, that is your CO1 outcrop. And as we started drilling and coming down towards the south is when we started hitting some pretty amazing intercepts. So hole 18, which is pretty much in the middle of that red shaded area, that was a wide interval of 215 meters that assayed at 1.69% lithium oxide. Hole 21, 347 meters at 1.35. The best hole here to note would be hole 44, which you see is sort of second up from the bottom there. That hit the top global hard rock lithium intercept that we can see worldwide. So that was a 457-meter interval of continuous spodumene pegmatite that assayed at 1.65% lithium oxide. Recently, we had a couple other drill hits and some visuals that we announced, specifically up there at the very top near that CO1 outcrop. So, you know, it's the system keeps proving itself, and we keep hitting intercepts of spodumene pegmatite here. But what does all this mean? What do these large intercepts mean? One of the things that we did this past summer was put out an exploration target. So that essentially is a conceptual estimate of what is there. We hired an independent consultant, so BBA came in. They took all of our drill data for the first 40 holes. So that was just 16,000 meters. And you can see it in this red shaded area on the map there. And what they estimated was that just based on the first 40 holes, there was a minimum of 215 million tons to a maximum of 329 million tons, grading between 1 to 1.38% lithium oxide. To put that in context, globally speaking, at that minimum 215 million tons, that would rank Cisco in the top 10 of world's largest hard rock lithium deposits. Again, this is just an estimate. This is just conceptual in nature, and that's what we're working towards right now, is to infill drill in that red mineralized zone there to continue proving it up and to then actually issue a resource estimate. This here's a cross section of what that exploration target looks like. So you see that red shaded area. That is what the exploration target was based on, and that's what we refer to as the mineralized zone. Because we don't have an actual resource estimate out there, we can't refer to it as a deposit, so we refer to it as a mineralized zone. And as you can see on this cross section here, there's a lot of the drilling is quite wide spaced. So what the goal right now is to infill drill that and bring it down to about 125 meter drill spacing. Again, this is just conceptual. Here is a long section. So this essentially shows all of the drilling up until, I believe this was last month. So you can see that CO1 outcrop, which is on the left-hand side of the screen to the northeast, and then trending down towards the southwest. For the most part, a lot of the mineralization is in the middle there, but it could continue towards the south and towards the north. The system is still open in all directions. But for the most part, we've been concentrating a lot of our drilling, a lot of our infill drilling in that main mineralized zone in the middle there. Some more geology for y'all. Here's the first cross section. So this is up near that CO1 outcrop. So recently we issued hole 77 there, which was unexpected, a nice little surprise that we hit, another 100 meters of mineralization up towards the northwest area where it wasn't expected. So, on that map on the right-hand side here, you can see that red shaded area. That's the mineralized zone. And in this cross section, that red shaded area is also the mineralized zone. So you can see how, these large intercepts are kind of tying together there. This cross section B is kind of trending towards the middle of that mineralized zone. So again, you can see some pretty phenomenal hits here. Hole 73 there had a really high grade hit at 170 meters, which assayed at 1.99% lithium oxide. Hole 73 there again had another high grade zone, that 40 meters at 2.89%. Cross section C, this is pretty much in the meat of the exploration target, if you will. This also highlights, some additional holes that we just released visual results on. We tend to issue visual results because you can actually see the spodumene pegmatite. It's white against, the wall rock, which is usually really dark. So that's why we issue the visuals. Assays are pending on these holes. This cross section also highlights hole 44 there with that large 457 meter intercept that assayed at 1.65% coming straight through the middle. Metallurgy, last year we did some initial met work. So the first mineralogy work that we did was to confirm that spodumene was the primary lithium bearing mineral. There's no petalite, lepidolite, that sort of thing. And then the next phase was our first phase of met work, which took 3 composite samples from holes 18, 21, and 23, and used HLS to heavy liquid separation to confirm that we could use a dense media separation process. Just based off of those 3 composite samples, we were able to produce about a 5.5% lithium concentrate with low iron and about a 70% recovery rate. So that was a good first phase, and we're actually submitting more samples right now. We're getting into our second phase of met work. So that'll just be an ongoing thing as we continue moving this project forward. Community engagement. As I mentioned before, I was just up in the area last week, lots of snow up there. And we'll be heading up there in 2 weeks for a community engagement, community environmental and lands conference that's being hosted by Nemaska Lithium. As you can see here, we are in the Nemaska Cree territory. We're sort of at the toe end of their territory. The highway does cross through us, but for the most part, we're 230 kilometers away from the actual village of Nemaska. Right now, we're currently doing our community relations work, getting out there, meeting everybody, having communications with them, building the relationships with everybody, just so that everybody knows where we are, what we're doing, what we're working on, building the foundations for our community relations activities, using companies that have joint ventures in place with the Cree territory, with Cree-owned companies, or also with companies that are based out of the town of Matagami, which is just to the south of us. We're also going through our Ecologo certification process, which essentially is a third-party verification, just, that we're using best business practices as we move things forward. Upcoming catalysts. So, we have our inaugural inferred mineral resource estimate that's coming out within the next couple of weeks. We're currently drilling up at Cisco. So we have 4 drill rigs turning, and they're working on infill drill spacing, tightening up that drilling so that we can get from an inferred category to an indicated category over the summertime. Continuing to do met work. We got the second phase is underway. And then in the background, also starting on preliminary economic assessment work, starting on baseline studies. Um, at this point, we can work on some of the desktop things, but we'll be getting out there in the springtime to start doing more baselines. We do have some permits in to build our own access road and camp. That'll bring us closer to Cisco. Right now, we're helicopter supported, so having that road will definitely cut down on costs for drilling. And then essentially getting together a preliminary economic assessment, so a PEA, hopefully late this year, maybe potentially trickling into early next year, just depending on assays. And to end, why QT Metals? We feel we have a tier one asset, with this exploration target that currently outlines at a minimum of 215 million ton mineralized zone. Getting that resource out there is one of the key things that we're looking at right now, and just continuing to move it forward as quickly as we can. We're in a great jurisdiction, Quebec and Canada itself, safe jurisdiction. Quebec just came out with their strategy for the development of critical and strategic minerals, focusing a lot on infrastructure in the region. Cisco itself is just 150 kilometers north of the rail line, so that is a huge, huge bonus for us. Working through our community and First Nations engagement, and we're poised for growth. We have a strong balance sheet. We have enough money to get through the year and to get us through to that PEA. So, there's lots of upcoming catalysts, potentially a strengthening lithium market. As Arlen, you mentioned that the lithium space was not very conducive to us working on a project in the early days, but hopefully it's getting better. I can't hear you, Arlen.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we do have a few questions here before we sign off. Basically, one is coming down to pushback from local communities. Are you doing an economic assessment and thoughts on timing of a bankable feasibility study, all from the same gentleman?
Wow. Okay. So
30
first
seconds.
part, what was the first question? So
Regional concerns at all, or pushback from any of the local communities?
not at this point, no.
Yeah.
The area is very commercialized. So you've got lots of other mining, lots of other projects being worked on in the area. Matagami to the south of us, they're historically a mining town because they had the Matagami mine down there.
Yeah.
So at this point, we're just getting out there and making sure we meet everybody, introduce ourselves, and make sure everybody's well aware about Cisco and what we're working on.
Yeah. And then planning on doing an economic assessment and thoughts on timing of a bankable
Yeah,
feasibility.
yeah. I mean, that'll come. I mean, we're still early days. We got to get that resource out there first. The resource will be an inferred resource to start. So drilling that we're doing right now this winter and over the spring, summer will essentially go into pulling a lot of that inferred into indicated. And then we'll issue an updated MRE potentially late summer, early fall, and then that'll be the basis for our PEA. So a bankable feasibility study, we're still, a couple years away from that, but still putting in the work and the time and the effort to get things going as quickly as we can.
Just out of my own curiosity, what kind of spacing do you need in lithium or spodumene exploration for an inferred resource? Do you know?
Right now we're about 120, 125 meter spacing.
Yeah.
A lot of the drilling that we did last winter was like 200 to 400 meter spacing just to continue to test that area to see, potentially how big it was. And still, even at 120 meter spacings, the system's still wide open in all directions. I think Neil and his team are continually surprised some of the times with some of the hits they get.
Yeah. Last question very quickly before we sign off.
Yeah.
What was the market cap of the company when you started on this?
Oh, that's a great one. Probably
10?
like 10 million,
10, and now what is it? Yeah.
350-ish.
Good work.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Especially in that headwinds. Like we worked on Sigma Lithium for a long time, right? And as Sigma was going from 50 down to 9, you were going from 30 to up here. So good for you. Well done.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, excellent. Thanks so much for your time, Alicia, and congratulations, and we'll keep watching your name.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.